Hello and welcome back to Finding Mojo. I'm your host Pete, and today I'm going to read chapter 1 from book 3 in the Qui Magi series entitled Benedicta Mater, where Milo returns to Italy. Lucida gazed to the west and the magnificent sunset beyond the surrounding hills of Civita di Bagnoregio, a hilltop town in the province of Viterbo, Italy. She'd been there almost 3 months since escaping the bishop's burning home in Gubbio. That seemed like another lifetime to her now. Her time in this small town had been a peaceful, healing one, staying with her wonderfully robust cousin, Apollonia. Lucida recalled the night she had arrived, Christmas Eve, and about the same time of day. But it was dark then and freezing cold. She smiled at the memory of her cousin's shocked expression. "Are you a ghost?" she asked, looking genuinely frightened. Lucida had laughed and replied, "No, but I'm as cold as a ghost. May I come in?" After convincing her that she was very much alive, they sat by the fire and Lucida had poured out her story for the very first time. It had been a cathartic experience for her, and at the conclusion, she broke down and wept. When she'd finally recovered, Lucida told of her mission now to find her son, Milo. Apollonia had sat for a long while thinking and finally said, "You're welcome to stay here, cousin, but we need a new identity for you." They'd cut her hair and dyed it black, and she took the name Felice. This is how she'd spent the last few months, hiding in this ancient place, healing her mental wounds and growing stronger. After 8 years a prisoner of the bishop, enduring mental anguish about her son and the torment of her captor, she had a great need of healing. Recently, she'd felt a stirring, like the very early whisperings of a spring breeze gently blowing through her mind. Her intuition was returning, and she was receiving persistent nudges, but was unable to identify their origin. Whatever the meaning, she felt that it was time she commenced the search for her son. She was strong enough now and eager to find him. Lucida was ready, and so was Jupiter. He had been well cared for since her arrival, and she'd ridden him often to keep him in condition. She could not have gotten this far without him. What a godsend he'd been, she thought. When she found him roaming the square in Gubbio, Jupiter had been unsettled and confused. Lucida was able to use her peculiar animal charm to settle and lead him away. Eventually she managed to climb on his back and ride west, away from danger. The 2-day ride had been arduous. She had little warm clothing, no money, and the fear of pursuit drove her on. They'd put in long days on the road, and the cold nights were spent away from the comfort of any towns that they had passed. Lucida knew she could not risk being captured again. Now that she'd laid low for long enough to make pursuit difficult, she was anxious to move and find her son. She had a strong intuition that he was still alive, and she wondered what he would look like now at age 16. But any attempt to picture him as he would appear now failed. However, she contented herself in the belief that she would know her son when the time came. As the light began to fade, Lucida slipped off the low wall and made her way back to Apollonia's cottage through the now familiar streets of the town. As she entered the cosy, neat dwelling, she was greeted by the wonderful smell of wholesome food being cooked on the fire, and she commented, "My, that smells delicious. Can I help with anything?" Apollonia pointed to the bread that had just been baked, and Lucida took a knife and began to slice it. "You live with that priest too long. You tear bread, not slice it like your royalty," Apollonia said with gusto. Her older cousin was a strong woman and a kind of unofficial matriarch of the town. With her, Lucida had felt safe for the first time in many years. She'd been impressed at how people in the town would seek Apollonia's advice, and she introduced her to everyone as her cousin from the north, Felice. Tonight, however, Apollonia seemed distracted and less talkative than usual. "Is all well, cousin?" Lucida asked eventually. The older woman stopped chopping vegetables, looked at her and said, "I heard a disturbing rumour today." She paused. Strangers in the valley were asking after a single woman on horseback arriving in the area in recent months. They gave an accurate description of you before your haircut. The new bishop is offering a reward for your capture. Lucida dropped her knife and cried out as if a cold hand gripped her heart. Apollonia touched her hand. "No one remembers you as you looked then. You're safe for now. Do you remember the escape plan if anyone should come to town?" "Yes, very well. I used the back streets to take me to the path down the cliff to the hermit's cave and hide until it's safe. Then collect Jupiter and make my way to the old Etruscan tunnel and escape into the woods below. I've even practiced going there a couple of times." "It is well then," Apollonia said, returning to her chopping. "You have a strong horse in Jupiter, and he'll carry you safely to your son. I'm sure of it. I think you should be in a state of readiness now, as they're close." "Did you find out who the men were?" Lucida asked anxiously. "They call themselves the Lupo Nero. Do you know them?" "Yes, I do." She shuddered involuntarily. "They were the ones responsible for Sabatino's death. So it is they who hunt me." She nodded thoughtfully. "I best be ready to leave then." "You had best be armed as well," Apollonia said, wiping her hands on a cloth and stepping over to a chest in the corner. After removing a rug from the top and some old clothes, she reached down into the bottom and retrieved a long, thin stiletto blade in a leather scabbard with a long strap. "Here," she said, offering it to Lucida. "It's a good blade and sharp. Be careful not to cut yourself," she added, laughing heartily. Lucida took the knife and drew it from its scabbard. The steel was bright and the blade long and slender, ending in a wickedly sharp point. She tested the edge carefully and smiled. "Very nice, cousin." "Grazie," she said, smiling. "Wear it always from now on, and keep your bag by the door. You must be ready to leave immediately should they come into town," Apollonia said gravely. No laughter now. "I feel it, cousin. It is time to leave now." "I won't wait for them to arrive. I'll leave at dawn," Lucida replied decisively. Apollonia nodded her approval. "Let's pack some food for the road then." When the meal was over and dishes cleared away, the two discussed a disguise and best route to take and how to avoid being followed. Later, as she lay in her bed thinking about her departure in a few hours, Lucida remembered something she used to do when she was young. How she would try and send a thought message to her brother from a distance, and her surprise when it worked. That was in her childhood, though, and she'd not tried it in many years. But having nothing to lose, Lucida cleared her mind and formed a simple message to her son. "Milo, where are you?" When no reply came after a few minutes, she rolled over disappointed and prepared to sleep. As she closed her eyes, however, she was shocked by a clear image that formed in her mind of a handsome young man and a clear voice in her mind that said, "I'm coming for you." End of chapter 1. If you'd like to read the rest of the book, I'll leave the link in the description below. Thanks for listening. Have a good day.